Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's On the Sofa. We're very pleased to say that we've got Alex and Sean from the Academy on with us tonight, and they'll tell you about their roles and how it's all going for them this season. I do apologise if I am delayed. I'm having terrible problems with my internet at the moment, so I apologise now. So let's bring Vic on and get some normality. Hi, Vic.
Hi, Chris. I don't think normality is the term to use for me, but thank you very much indeed for that. I've got some SAS travel for you. Obviously, Colchester and Harrogate. Now, Colchester and Harrogate bus tickets are on sale tomorrow night, phone bookings only, and in person or on the phone on Thursday night in the SAS travel office behind the town end. Always advisable to have match tickets before you book with SAS. So if you want to go travelling to Colchester and Harrogate, bus tickets on sale tomorrow by phone and in person or phone on Thursday at the number that's available on the profile of SAS Travel. So there we are. We should say also Colin Calderwood's been appointed first team coach to Southampton today. So we wish Colin well in that role.
Exactly. So leading on from that, just like to say that the 85-86 live event that we've got in November, if you are a bit undecided if you're going, please make a decision quite quickly because we've got less than 20 tickets left. So you need to get in there pretty sharpish. And it's great that we're going to be sold out, but I don't want anybody to miss out on it if they, because it's quite 3 weeks away. But we've only less than 20 tickets we've got left, so which is brilliant. So good. Okay, so let's bring Sean and Alex on. I'm just saying that because that's the way they are on my screen. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Right, I'm going to leave you. So if you've got any questions for Alex or Sean, please leave them in the comments and we'll get back get them to Vic to ask. I'll speak.
Thanks, Chris, very much indeed. And thank you very much, Steve, for dealing with your internet out there in the sticks. Sean and Alex, thank you ever so much for joining us. And you're going to enlighten us over the next hour about what the Academy does, which is an extraordinary amount of work. So we really value your time. Thank you very much indeed. And the first question I'm going to ask Sean is, you are lead professional development phase coach, which is a fabulous title. We're going to get your answer to that in a little while. So you can tell us all about that. Alex, you're recently Academy manager because you weren't Academy manager before that. So that's a recent role you've taken on since Jamie Russell's moved over to head of football. I think that's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, correct.
Right. Shall we just get on with this subject, which is always asked of you, Alex, or whenever you're on this. And, you know, we want to get an answer on this. You want to get it cleared up. Everybody wants to get it cleared up. This is from Dan. Would you please ask Alex what it was like to be involved in the STFC Karachi project, which is now nothing to do with the football club and turns out never was? Does he know what went on and could he enlighten us? Cheers in advance. Right. Over to you, because we would like to get this cleared up once and for all. And if there isn't an answer you can give us, we'll get clarification from the football club. But give us your experience.
So from my point of view and experiences as a coach and the things that I've taken from it, actually a lot of positives. So it's taken me out of my comfort zone. So it was somewhere that you went to, you go into a different environment, you're going into a different culture, you go into a place where they don't talk the same language as yourself. All those obstacles and all those things to try and overcome were actually really, really positive experiences for me. So when you look at being outside of your comfort zone and being able to communicate, it's okay, I have to find a way of building relationships where English isn't the first language. So how do you do that? That was one thing. You're then learning about culture, backgrounds. Actually, culture is massive for us. So as an environment, as a Swindon Town environment, it helped me a lot with those things. So understanding what it is to be part of a culture and part of a togetherness. And then also religion. So the Muslim being the religion, the main religion there, or being a Muslim. And then linking that back into our environment, we've got boys that are Muslim. So it helped me understand those boys. And I think it helped me connect families as well. So the positive experience there for me, massive.
In terms of which umbrella it stands under, I don't think that's your department to answer, is it? Or is it? Or what can you give us on that particular subject?
It's not quite. You're right in what you say there. But again, just going back to the experiences that it gave me and it being something really, really positive, it's something that I look at with great fondness and something that really challenged me and helped me to grow as an individual. And I do believe it helped me to grow into the individual I am now within the role that I'm in. And hopefully some things linking back to culture, linking back to environment, and linking back to kind of a togetherness, that it makes a little bit more sense later on.
There was a coach came over here, didn't he? And spent some time at the football. Yeah. How did that work out?
Fantastic. So we also managed to link in with the PFA as well, and Riz, who looks after certain things at the PFA, that really wanted to get on board with what we were doing. Zubair, coming into our experiences, he was like a sponge. So he wanted to, coming into our environment, he was like a sponge. He just wanted to lap up everything. So he'd go and do sessions with the 9s in the evening, across the first evening, and observe that. Then take the 14. Woody was looking after last season. So again, just wanting to take it on board. And actually the opportunity that we provided there was really quite something special. So I made the journey back with Zubair. Zubair had never left Pakistan. He'd never left Karachi. He'd never been on a plane. So being able to share that with him and being able to take on a little bit of a mentor role with him is something that will always stick with me, because you taking someone from somewhere that he'd never left, and all of those first experiences, like getting on a plane, like walking through an airport. I thought that whole experience was actually quite magical.
And the boys, of course, I understand that they're still being coached by him. But in terms of the boys themselves, what do you think they got out of it or get out of it?
Structure. So going into a structured environment whereby they're coming away from, they're at an age there whereby if they're not going into that, or they're not in education, which some of them aren't, they're going to work, and they're working to bring home money for the family. So they might be the main breadwinner within that family. So actually, again, linking back to our environment, giving the boys there somewhere to go, to be part of a group, to be together, and to be playing the sport that they love was and is something quite special.
All right, Alex. Well, we spent a little time talking about that. We will go and try and seek further clarification, because people ask a question. Every time we speak to you, this crops up. You've given us a full answer about how your involvement was, and we'll leave it there for the moment, but we will get to the football club and ask them the answer to that question, I think it's fair to say. So thank you very much. Sean, so then, you've had a little time to think about it. So lead professional development phase coach, go. What does that mean?
Yeah, well, in essence, and to put it in a shortest possible way, really, it's just under 18s lead coach. I've been lucky enough to be part of a lot of the players' journeys over many years. So actually quite a few of the boys that have come through the program, I'm now working with in the under 18s full-time program as well. So I know quite a lot of their journeys as such. But in short, really, my role is to keep working with the players in a full-time capacity where they're in, and every day it's their job alongside the education program, and to try and develop the players to as close as possible to the first team. Thankfully, this year, we've had quite a lot of our younger players involved in the first team environment, as the supporters will be aware. And that's just making sure that we do everything right day to day on and off the pitch to give the boys the best opportunity to be as close to the first team environment as possible.
Because it's a big step, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest. Youth team football. There's no, when I was watching football years ago, there was the combination. You had that bridge between youth football, if you like, and then senior football. There isn't that bridge anymore. Is that a problem, Sean, do you think, or not? Does that need to be addressed?
I think it's a big jump initially. So you're talking 16, 17, 18-year-olds being ready to play in an adult football professional environment. So initially, it can be quite a big jump for some players, and possibly potentially longer term, maybe we look at bridging the gap with something in the middle. But at this moment in time, with where the club is and the culture that we've got and the environment that we've connected together, the academy and the first team, the closest it's probably ever been as an environment. It's allowing players to be in and around the training program more. on a day-to-day basis, which is then giving them the opportunities and experiences to be around the first team management and staff and players and see what the next level is. Whereas previously we might not have the league in between the 18s and the first team, but we also didn't have the opportunity for boys to go and train in that environment. So it was almost like an under 18s and academy, and then it would be the first team environment and playing on a Saturday and for points. So there was such a big divide between the two. Whereas at this moment in time, with the close culture between the academy and the first team, more of our players are having the opportunity to be in and around training more and more.
Which is good news. Alex, we were sort of chatting earlier about Reading. Now, obviously, those of us who went, it was a 5-0 defeat by local rivals, never a good thing. But the positive was, albeit, it was a tough baptism for them, a lot of debuts and a lot of younger players getting the chance to play in a first team environment.
Yeah, so for us, the experience, and I've spoke about it previously, that the Papa John's Trophy brings is massive for us as an academy, and then bridging that gap. So actually getting a taste for what it is to be playing in front of 3,000+ fans. So I know the Arsenal game here, for example, there was 3,300 odd fans here, which is massive. Playing under the lights at the county ground in front of fans it is an experience that the games program can't give. The game program can give a lot. It can't give something that you have to feel and you have to do those things, be able to understand how you deal with the pressures that it bring, the decisions that you might make. And then linking in with Reading as well. Again, what an experience, and actually something for us that we can really celebrate as an academy and as a football club is that you had 9 or 10 boys involved that are current academy players and a couple more that have come through the system. So actually for us, success on the night didn't look like a scoreline, but it looked like a clear identity and a clear pathway from academy into first team and giving boys those opportunities and those experiences so they can go away and grow and develop on those.
How's it changed, Sean? Because those of us of longer memories will remember back the early 60s when there were a lot of local grown boys who, John Trollope is a classic example, made his way into the first team. Paul Hunt we spoke to last week on this, and he was a local boy, made his way into the first team. How has it changed in terms of getting young players into the first team now? Does there seem to be a very positive attitude to that? Is Mike Flynn positive to that kind of thing?
I think initially one of the biggest blockers can be the culture and values of the club initially. So making sure that everything's connected between the academy and the first team and having a pathway. And then secondly, it can be big first team squads and a lot of professionals that make up the match day squads and also an additional training squad. So I think it was last year, did we have around 30 pros, I think, within the squad? And then if you're trying to push 16, 17, 18s into that environment, it can be blocked by pros that are within the first team squad. So sometimes as a manager, your hands can be tied because actually there's pros within the squad that need to be in and around. As it stands at the moment, I know it's a big thing with the size of our first team squad for whatever reason that is, but it does allow younger players to have the experience and the opportunity to be in and around the first team. Now, from a longer term perspective, and some of our talented younger players having that opportunity, it will make them more aware of what they need to do individually when we're working day to day. And hopefully in a few more years' time, we'll see the fruits of 4 or 5 academy players within our first team squad and also good enough to be on the pitch longer term. And that's our main goal as a group of staff. I'm a Swindon fan. I've watched many games over the years, and we want to see more younger players from Swindon within our first team environment and playing on the pitch. So for us to give that opportunity from a younger age, longer term, they'll be more suited and more ready to make that next step. Alex,
what's the thing about, all right, you get a player who plays at Reading, for instance. What's the next step for them? Do they then have to prove that they're good enough to stay in the squad for a while? How does that work?
Work different for kind of any individual, really. So it might be that was their first experience, so it might have been the first taste. So for us then, and linking in with our values, it's about remaining humble. So you've had that experience, reflect on that experience, and what do you need to do now as part of like individual goal setting to get yourself back in and around that environment. So if you've been on the bench, okay, well, what's next? Well, it's coming on for X amount of time at the end, maybe. These aren't goals that we'd set the individual, but we'd maybe encourage them to set those goals for themselves. So it's okay, now I've made X amount of minutes. Can I come on after 60 minutes? Can I get second half? Can I get a start? So you're constantly asking boys to goal set around those things. And I know our player care lead, Sophie, she does a lot of work around keeping the boys humble, but making sure that they're goal setting and making sure that they've set sort of achievable targets, short, medium and long term, that they want to reach as either a first year scholar, a second year scholar, or first or second year pro, because I think it's important that everybody's goal setting around those things that are maybe just entered into that first team environment.
Yeah, sure. Alex mentioned their player care, and that's quite a big thing now, isn't it? Because, you know, in years past, a young player would be marched into a manager's office and saying, sorry, we're not taking you on, all that kind of thing. But I think academies now have changed with that, haven't they? And aftercare is a big thing now as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it actually takes a little bit of burden away from me, to be honest, dealing with the boys day to day. So very thankful for the opportunity to be able to have that additional member of staff. It's been with our academy now for 2 years. What we can do is we can offer additional time, one-to-ones with players every week. So they've got that opportunity to speak to a member of staff that's not part of the coaching staff that might be making critical decisions and unfortunately leaving you in squads, putting you in squads, like not being involved and all that sort of stuff that goes on from the coaching staff. It gives them that opportunity to have a voice, play a voice initially. And then longer term, players that unfortunately don't receive a professional contract, they're still part of our program, alumni program, for 3 years. So Sophie will support that player, every single player, into some form of work environment, college, universities, any scholarships in America that they may go on to. So there's a program that tracks that as well. It also supports a lot of our boys in the younger age groups. So boys that unfortunately don't go to the next stage, we support their journeys into an environment that we feel suits them best. So there's a lot of stuff in sort of like the social media domain that academies are not great, and sometimes they sell the dream that all players are going to be professional footballers. That is not the case within our environment, and a lot of academies. I can say that hand on heart. A lot of the work that's done is to develop the boy, and around our culture and values, we work with the boy and the person first to develop them into the most grounded person. And as Alex said, humble, adventurous, industrious. So all them core values that we talk about, making sure we develop them first. And then hopefully with the individual development plans we've got in place for their football, they develop that at the same time. And whatever pathway they go on, whether it's with us and into our first team, like a lot of our boys are getting the opportunity to at the moment, if they go on a different route where unfortunately they don't receive that opportunity or they don't become a professional at Swindon Town Football Club, we've given them the best opportunity to develop as a person.
What do you look for then, Alex? How does it start? How does the pathway start for a young person who wants to become a professional footballer for Swindon Town? How does that all start off?
So how we break it down is we look for certain things, and these are kind of broken down into what we would call sort of our academy columns. So the technical excellence part of it is kind of a given. It is something that is football, isn't it? So the technical excellence is not just being able to do X amount of skills or X amount of this or X amount of that, but actually being able to apply those at the correct moment within a game. The second column that we look for is athletic versatility. So how do they move based on kind of our S&C program? So Sam, who's our head of department there, has put together a program, and he works really, really hard around that program, breaking down into his athletic versatility for a 9 to 12-year-old, which would be a foundation phase. What does it look for a 13 to 16-year-old? Then obviously in DP, professional development for the under 17s and under 18s. So athletic versatility is excels, decels, jumping, landing, twisting, turning. So they're things that that Sam would look for. The next part then is being continuously curious. So being a learner, wanting to learn, wanting to develop, not just as a young footballer, but as a young person as well. So being able to take on board information, can they then go and try it, be brave enough to go and try it. And Kirk, who's our head of education, he looks after like the education program and touches base with like all the schools that all the boys go to throughout the academy, but then leads the education program for our scholars. So just continuously encouraging the boys to be continuously curious and be a learner. So not just a learner in our environment, but away from our environment too. And then there's the last one, which is to be a proficient performer. So it's that want to be the best possible version of yourself that you can be. So that might be, again, as a young footballer or as a young person. So if I'm a proficient performer and I want to be the best that I can be, I want to be the fastest runner. I want to be the highest jumper. I want to be able to run the longest. I want to be able to win every 1v1 battle, 1v1 duel that I'm in. I want to make sure that I'm fueling correctly, because we believe that all of those smaller wins, so around that, then helps you win on the football pitch. And I use win as a word there, and it's not necessarily reflection on scoreline, but as a young person.
Yeah, Sean, reaction is a big thing, isn't it? I mean, and we mentioned Reading, but you learn a lot more sometimes about a young player when things aren't going their way. That's fair to say, isn't it? And also, of course, young people develop at different levels, don't they? They might be outstanding at the age of 14, but then their performance might drop off. So does that all get taken into account, all that kind of thing?
Yeah, so through the youth development phase, we look at growth and maturation and maturity and where they're sort of at with their chronological age and their biological age. So sort of they might be an early developer. So their birthdays may be at the start of the year, where they might be a bit taller, a bit more mature. And then we may have some later developers, so quarter 4 we call it, where they're maybe in the last month or 2 months of the year. So they might be slightly smaller or slightly less mature. So we do consider everything. We don't just sort of select the bigger boys. We look at them 4 columns as the key across the age groups. And then we work with what we call depth charts. So we look at all of our age groups and we look at positions specific criteria in each position. And then we look what's above the certain age group and then what's coming through from below. So we try to keep the pathway open for some of our high performing players. And then we make a decision on where we feel players are at. When it gets to the youth team, we have a group of 20 scholars this year. We try to take through maybe between 8 to 10 each year into our under 18s program to make up about 20 players within the squad. And we consider all of that criteria when we make them decisions.
The one thing, when we spoke to James Russell about this, Alex, when he was doing what you're doing now, the one thing that I was surprised to know is you have a kind of Ofsted, don't you? You have a kind of, academies are checked upon like that. I mean, so they are quite regimented now in terms of what you have to do to reach certain criteria. And
we're due one soon as well. So I think you might have jinxed it there. I know I'll get the email tomorrow now.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, we're due a full audit soon. And within that full audit, they'll look at basically every aspect of the academy. So they'll obviously look at the footballing element, but they'll look at everything else that we go after and everything else that we do too. So it is quite sort of rigorous around that they do want to look at everything. And actually, for us, it's a real positive, because we can kind of show off the good work that we're doing and how intentional we're being as an academy around things that previously maybe we weren't too intentional around. So we're quite, I was going to say quietly confident, but I'm saying it on here now, but we're quite confident that the work that we're doing and the effort that everybody's putting in across the whole academy has put us in a really, really good place and creates a culture and an environment for young people to grow and develop as individuals and as footballers too.
So, there are various things in Ofsted, say, for instance. Have you got those as well? Do you have, I don't know, satisfactory, very satisfactory, outstanding. Are those levels sort of taken into account?
Yeah, so it was a similar sort of thing. And then what you'll get throughout is you'll get action points that might be like a red, for example, that you need to action, and you need to show that you're actioning it within a certain amount of time. So that's something that is taken into account and is taken into consideration. The process itself lasts about a week. So they'll come in on the Monday. I'd probably sit and present around what it is to be in our environment, and just kind of signpost things. Then hopefully that those that come in to do the Ofsted can then pick up and see throughout the week. So they go and observe Woody. They probably interview Woody as well, around the professional development phase, the youth development phase leads. So Nathan and Lewis, they go to sessions for them as well, and sit them down. And then same with the foundation phase with Ryan, they'd observe sessions, and then they'd sit down with Ryan. And the main point around that is just to make sure that everything's aligned. And we spoke earlier on, and Woody spoke earlier on about an alignment through the club and into the first team now. Actually, with Jamie going into that role, myself in this role, and so on and so forth, there is now an alignment. There is now a thread through the club. So audit or kind of the Ofsted type thing are looking at those parts there.
Yeah, how much work goes in, Sean? What's your average day? Because we jokingly said you turn up at 1 in the afternoon and you go home at 1:30, but of course that's nonsense. I mean, what is your average day? Would you say? Is there one? Is there an average day?
To be honest, most days and most weeks can be different. This week, I'll just give you an example. We've got obviously Aldershot in the FA Youth Cup on the Wednesday. Wednesday would naturally be the day off for staff. And the players would be in for education. So we would do Monday, the boys would have the morning off to travel in. Monday afternoon, we would train, but we split the group. So we have the under-18s train together. And then we have the under-17s train with the under-16s in the evening, just so the under-16s can train with the group that they will be with next year as scholars. On a Tuesday and a Thursday will be a double session at Cirencester Royal Agricultural College, which is our new venue for training this year. Wednesday would be the day off for everybody, apart from the boys that would be in for education. And then Friday would be in for a single session before the games on the Saturday morning. But this week, we're training today together in readiness for Wednesday. We train tomorrow again in readiness for Wednesday. And then Thursday would be education for all the players. The staff will be off. And then we'll be in Friday to prepare ready for Plymouth on the Saturday. And then Sunday would be a day off for all of the under-18 staff, and the rest of the academy would be in for their games. So the weeks can be different, to be honest, but that's just an overview of a midweek game and how the week can sort of differ between Wednesday and Thursday for education for the players.
You say you have a day off. Do you really have a day off, or are you doing other stuff when you're on your day off?
So for the Wednesday, we'll play Aldershot. On the Thursday, we'll be watching Plymouth and preparing the session for the Friday to then deliver the session and then be ready to perform in the game on the Saturday. So I'd say mainly the days off can be split into half of the day preparing for the next day and also looking at the opposition clips. Thankfully this year we've got Aaron, who's part of our team as an under-18s analysis intern. He will put together little presentations and send them to me to watch on how the opposition play with the ball and without the ball. And I'll spend some time to watch Aldershot like I did yesterday for most of the morning, have an idea around how I think the opposition are going to set up, and then make sure all of our players are prepared for the next game, and then set some sessions that are challenging enough, varied enough to make sure that the players are ready to perform in each game that's coming up.
We've got one or two comments coming in. Sean mentioned Siren there, and we'll get onto that next with you, Alex. But it says, Kerry Payne says, we went out to Siren and watched both the under-16 and under-18s against Bristol Rovers a few weeks ago. Great games. So let's talk about Cirencester, because it's a new base for you. You can do everything out there. You used to play at Foundation Park, all that kind of thing. But now you have a training base. How important is that?
Massively important. So one of the things that we were kind of looking at the back end of last year as part of our program is actually how many venues that we operate out of. So without a training ground, without a training facility, we were kind of booking slots sort of at different venues. So we had Foundation Park, we had New College still as part of our training program, Beversbrook, Stanley Park. So we were out of many different venues, and we still are as part of our training program, especially when the nights draw in as they are now, and needing to be able to train on like a 3G or a 4G under the floodlights. But on a Saturday and a Sunday, there was a disconnect, so we weren't playing at the same venue, so we had nowhere that we could call a home. So our 16s and our 18s would be playing at Stanley Park on the Saturday, and then, for example, on a Sunday, you'd have our 9s, 10s, and 11s at Foundation Park, and our 13s and 14s, or 12s, 13s, 14s, would be at Beversbrook. So those two phases, the foundation phase and the youth development phase, never actually got to cross over. So they were almost operating as two separate entities. So the opportunity came up to explore the Agriculture University and actually have a home. So the Agriculture University for us is somewhere where we can have the 16s and the 18s playing on a Saturday, but then also have all of the younger age groups play on the Sunday. So if you've got let's say it's our odds that are at home, so you've got our under 9s and our under 13s all playing at the same venue. But what they'll do is they'll get to the Agriculture University they'll get slightly early, so it's not going straight to changing rooms, but we actually provide a very sort of humble breakfast, like the boys. They're able to come in and they're able to socialise before the game. And you've got 10-year-olds sat chatting with 13-year-olds, and you've got 13-year-olds then for us, which is massive, being role models for the 9-year-olds, because they might have already done that journey, or their journey might look a little bit different. So for us, it goes back to, again, culture, again, environment, having that family feel and having a togetherness. The Agricultural University has allowed us to do it. So at the start of the year, we was only going to be playing a games program there, so only going to be there on the weekend. But that very quickly evolved. So our under 18s, the PDP, they'll train there on a Tuesday and a Thursday as well. So they're kind of like the loaded days for the boys. So they'll do education there in the morning, because we've got exclusive access to a building that allows us to do that. So that's just taken that program to another level. There's a gym there again that we can operate out of. So when Sam's doing either like pre-activation or a gym session that they need to do, then we've got that on site. We've then got the pitches, so we go out to the pitches and sort of not be constrained by time. So if we want to stretch this a little bit, we can, because we've not from time to that time, and we have to be on or off, which that helps us better cater for the needs of the boys, because we might need to explain something a little bit more. So yeah, as a venue, it's somewhere that we can call a home, and everybody can be there together. So it was really important for us that we made that move, and I think we're kind of just at the beginning of that journey. I think it could be loads more in the future too.
Good, that's good to hear. This is Craig. I spent a lot of time with my two sons at the Cardiff City and Bristol Rovers Academies about 15 to 20 years ago. As a parent, I found the environment brutal, especially when other parents realise your child is playing in their child's position. How difficult is it to manage parents' expectations and influence nowadays? Sean, I was going to mention parents are massively important, of course, because of the huge role, don't they, to play, ferrying young people here, there and everywhere. How many conversations do you have with parents? I guess a lot is the answer to that, isn't it?
A lot over the years. Actually moving across to the under 18s, that is a bit more responsibility and ownership for them to approach the staff and have the conversations, the difficult conversations with myself or Sophie or maybe Kirk or another member of coaching staff. We actually put the onus on them a little bit more. But when I was youth development phase lead and foundation phase lead, managing parents and getting the parents to understand the importance that they also play in the program. We talk massively around our environment is the player, the parent and the coaches, not the coaches and the player. None of them three work if they don't work together. So you have to have parents involved in the program, understand what you do. We work every year based around an induction meeting with our parents and our players, and we make that multidisciplinary. So it's evolved over the years. Now we have a different room, a different station to go through every area of the academy in small groups. So they get that smaller group time to go around and speak to people and ask questions. We have very open-minded staff. We have very honest staff. We work on a 6 weekly schedule of review feedback for every player, every parent. 12 weekly for the younger boys. They'll receive feedback face-to-face, and 6 weekly on PMA, which is an online tool that we use to give feedback to players, and players can feedback to us with their player reflections. So as an academy and environment, again, I would say we've evolved and we've got better as we've gone on. Don't get me wrong. There's some times where you can have some challenging situations and some difficult phone calls, especially towards the end of the year, when you unfortunately have to make decisions on what's best for each player to go through each year. That's probably one of the hardest parts of the job. But you're only doing what's best for the player and what's best for the club.
Sure. Stephen Trowbridge. Hi, Stephen. What advice can you give the lads in the pre-academy under 7s and under 8s trying to move into the main academy Wednesday night group? Explain what that is, Alex, because obviously those of us who don't know about the movements of the academy, presumably under 7s and under 8s, then it's a kind of more senior group. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so it's based on what the individual needs at that moment. So if the individual needs stretch and challenge in a group that he might get that stretch and challenge in, then we'd look to move the boy into that group. Now, what we wouldn't do is we wouldn't say, okay, go and be part of it if we don't think that that the boy is ready for it, basically. So we go back to, and we'd refer to as an environment, the columns again, and we'd look across those columns and go, right, okay, where's the boy sat at this moment across there, and is that individual ready for that challenge at the moment? So it might not necessarily be that it's a technical thing or it's a tactical thing or it's anything around that. It's just actually based on when the individual needs that stretch and that challenge and the successes that they're getting. What we wouldn't want to do is we wouldn't want to put a boy into an environment that's going to be constantly stressed and constantly stretched and constantly challenged, because actually, I think this goes for everybody, we all need to be getting success at something through certain stages. So it's understanding when the challenge or when the stretch, or even if that stretch and challenge might be the correct thing to do.
Sure. So what would you say to those lads then? I mean, let's be honest, under 7s and under 8s, they all want to be at the very top of the football career, don't they?
With that, and breaking down what we look at and what we go after. So our 7s and 8s are kind of our pre-academy and emerging talent program. We go after, what we call it me. So we go after the individual. So the individual is exploring what they are as a young footballer. So are they tricky with the football? Are they going to twist and turn on the football? Do they love dribbling with the football? Are they very good at striking? So we actually look at the boy as an individual, their technical ability with it. So we're not looking for the perfect game at those age groups, because I don't think that's a realistic expectation. So the advice would be to keep enjoying it, keep working hard, and keep sort of exploring what you're good at, whilst challenging yourself and stretching yourself across different things too. And
enjoying football as well. That's a big factor.
That's the most, if you're not having fun, then there's no point.
Yeah, sure. Right. This is from Ian. A question: do your players eat and drink on site, Sean? And if yes, what do they eat and drink? Now, diet has changed a lot, hasn't it? I mean, for those of us who played Sunday League football, 5 pints on Saturday night and then you go out and play football on a Sunday morning. That's great. But I'm guessing that we moved on a little bit from that, haven't we? So where are we at with diets in the academy? I guess you've got specialist advice, have you?
Yeah, so a lot of our nutrition program set through Sam, who heads up our strength and conditioning program. But the boys, every time they're with us in our environment, they're fed by the club. So when we're at the stadium and we train at Foundation Park on a Monday and a Friday, we will eat lunch at the stadium. The chefs are brilliant. We built a program that and the diet and nutrition that we'd like to feed the boys on set days. They love a Friday afternoon at the moment because Jed puts together a little pudding for them. So they look forward to that on a Friday afternoon. Extra carbs. On a Tuesday and a Thursday, we travel to Siren. So we take pasta pots or chicken wraps, some squares bars, some bananas and water with us on the minibus to Siren. And then when we have lunch, we eat in the academy sort of hub building that's got a kitchen there. So we use their facilities, but take the food with us. Again, provided by the club. And then on a Wednesday, when they're educational day, the club provide the food again. So it's usually what the first team have got on a Wednesday. So that could be a varied, it could be lasagna, it could be pasta, it could be chicken. But generally it's meat, it's a carb, and then some vegetables. Apart from on a Friday, they get the additional extra of the pudding that they look forward to.
Very nice. What pudding is it normally? Do you know?
We've had a mix. We've had apple crumble, which goes down really well with custard.
Lovely.
We had a sponge last week. He sometimes does a little chocolate brownie as well, so it goes down well with the staff. You never see so many staff eating lunch on a Friday, I'll tell you that.
I might pop round one day. Anyway, the diet is a big thing now, and I think it was people like Glenn Hoddle kind of changed the perception of diets, didn't he? When he played in France and Monaco, of course, and there's a picture behind you, Alex, of Glenn Hoddle's great team. I mean, people like that came over and changed the perception, didn't they, Alex, of what footballers should eat?
Yeah, so we refer to it as fueling. So actually, what do you need? What fuel do you need to be able to perform at your best? So it might look like fueling for a game. It might look like recovery off the back of that as well. So actually being able to understand what your body needs based on yourself. So my dietary requirements might look different to Woody's, for example. So it's understanding what we need based on what we've done to recover or to fuel for a day. So if it's a double session for the 18s, for example, their fueling and their recovery would look different to perhaps a single session. Likewise with a game day as well, based on the distances and the outputs that they'd either be predicted to be doing or they actually have done.
Fair enough. This is from Kevin. Does Michael Flynn and Clem talk to you guys in the academy in reference to players that you might think have long-term plans for the first team? Say, for instance, Sean, Mike Flynn comes to you and says, we've got an EFL trophy game on Wednesday at Reading or Tuesday at Reading. Who have you got? Who do you recommend? Is it that sort of conversation? So
the discussions and everything like that is through Jamie Russell as head of football, and then Alex, and then to myself. So there will be a discussion that does take place through Jamie first, then to Alex, and then to myself. And then if there's additional players that need to go across to training on a daily basis, or if, for example, the EFL trophy, there's going to be more players involved, we will know who's going to be involved and what's required. And then we'll put the travel logistics and plan in place to make sure that all of the boys can get to Beversbrook. Obviously, with us training at Siren and most of the boys not being able to drive, there's a massive plan that has to then take place to make sure that the boys can get to training and back from training, as well as the session still going on for the under 18. So sometimes it can be great for everybody and for the boys and for the staff, but also there's a lot of planning that does take place, a lot of logistical things that we have to, and bridges we have to cross to make sure that it all works smoothly and everybody gets to where they need to get to.
And how is it? I mean, let's be honest, nobody likes to lose 5-0 in any game, but what happens afterwards when you talk to those young players and they've had that experience? Some it might make, some it might not make. Do you see the point I'm making? Disappointment sometimes makes people, sometimes it doesn't. So how do you deal with those conversations?
So for us, it would link back to our values, and part of being industrious is being resilient. So if it wasn't necessarily a fantastic experience or there were things in there that didn't work, well, it's about being resilient to those. And then link into being continuously curious. Well, why did that happen? What did that moment look like? How did it feel? And then actually being able to then goal set, like we spoke about earlier on, around, okay, how do I overcome that? What does it look like next time? And then actually reconnect with like your best moments as well as a young footballer. So that would be what that would look like. But then also for those that might have found it a really, really positive experience and it's something that they want more, well, the process is kind of the same. You still got to kind of have that goal setting. You've still got to be patient, and then linking back into being that proficient performer and wanting to be a winner across various things. Well, what are you doing to get back into that environment? So that's kind of the way that we look at those, and conversations would be around fantastic. It was a great experience for yourself, but how are you going to get to the next one?
Sure, and also, Sean, and also, Sean, I guess we all have bad days, whatever we do, don't we? So I guess, when you have a talk to a player and they've had a bad game, it's not the end of the world, is it? You kind of, there's another game coming along. There's another way of proving that you're not going to be like that all the time, I guess. Mentally, psychology is a big thing now, isn't it?
Yeah, so after the Reading game in particular, when they was in for their day of education, I popped in at lunchtime, just sat down with a few of the boys, sort of have a little bit of a debrief with one or two of the boys and see what their thoughts were. And then, to be honest, moments like that, they don't come around very often, so we don't overanalyze them particular games and them moments too much. We would then move Thursday and Friday on to the next game that they're going to be involved in, whether that would be in the first team environment or the next under 18s game. So the games come thick and fast at under 18s, and even some of the under 16s that were off school for that particular fixture. So they've got that opportunity to get straight back into and stuck into another fixture and build on where they are and try and push on to improve themselves as an individual first. Everything we do is what's best for every player. They've all got individual development plans and they all know sort of the areas they need to work on. And like you said, the social and psych part of football, and then being in a first team environment with men and management staff that might shout at you a little bit more than what we do, you've got to have the tools to be able to deal with that and man up to it. And the player care role, and us as coaches at times, sometimes it might just be an arm around the shoulder, or sometimes it might be that they need to be told. But being able to deal with them different moments, the boys who can will push on with their individual development quicker than some of the boys that will dwell on certain situations. Sure.
I'm not sure I understand this question, so maybe you can answer this, Alex. Sean says, are the C6 feeder to you? Every time I see their results against other college teams, they seem to be very positive most of the time. Do you know what that is?
The C6 is the Swindon Town Foundation's like their college program.
Right.
So, whilst obviously we work closely with the foundation, we train on Foundation Park on a Monday and a Friday. It's not necessarily a feeder because it's a similar age to the scholars that we've got. So, yeah, I hope that clears that one up.
Sure. How do you go about spotting talent then? Because at 7, lots of kids are still playing with, I don't know, Fortnite or whatever it is they play with. How do parents come to you? Do sort of teachers come to you? How does it work?
So through partnerships, through relationships, and obviously we've got our scouting network as well that will be out at games. So Martin, who's our head of recruitment, he'd be out at games and building relationships with local teams, local development centres, but then also other development centres that might fall just outside of either Swindon or more south within Wiltshire, and helping and upskilling them around what we'd look for. And then there might be a recommendation into our environment. There might be, Martin might spot something on the weekend that he then feed back at. There'd then be like a trial period within our environment. And the trial period isn't really necessarily to see, okay, is the boy unbelievable at football, but actually, is it the right environment for him? Is it somewhere that he can come into and grow and develop? And that's how we would look at that. But what there isn't kind of a rule of thumb. It isn't right, if you're not ready at under 7s or under 8s, then you're never going to be. It varies. Like different, and this is how it should always be looked, is young people's journeys, like within football, might start or might finish at different times. It's just when that right time comes, you kind of go along that. So Martin might spot someone, for example, under 9s. They come in for a trial. It's not quite right at that moment, and this is an actual example as well. But then that boy might come back in at under 12s, and he's more than ready, and he comes into the environment then at under 12s, and he's actually thriving in the age group that he's in at the moment.
Yeah, there are late developments, and and then there are people who sort of fall off, aren't there, Sean? I mean, it's kind of like that, isn't it? I mean, if you think of, say, Charlie Austin, for instance, his route into football wasn't. I think he started at Reading and then went into non-league. So there are ways that various people come into football, don't they?
Yeah, like if you look at even like Miles for an example, he came into the program at under 15s, so he was fairly late into the program. So some boys can join the emergent talent group and come all the way through, like George Alston, who was in the squad on Saturday, and then there's Miles, who's come into the program in the later age groups, and he brings slightly different characteristics, slightly different, more powerful and more strength, and then we need to put together an individual program that works with both players who have been with us a long time and a shorter time, to give them the best opportunity to go on from the under 18s and be in the first team environment.
Sure. I mean, what is success, Alex? I mean, is it a success in 10 years' time that a lot of the younger players are, you've got a 1 to 11 representing Swindon Town that's come through your academy? Is it the fact that you've unearthed a diamond and you goes on and, you look at the Extra Academy, for instance, Ollie Watkins, for goodness sake, he's come through their academy. Look where he is now. What is success for you?
Success for us would vary. One of the things that we go after as well is about empowering young people. So empowering young people to be, again, the best version of themselves, and then empowering young football players and young decision makers around that as well. So success, obviously, the dream is that you, like you've just said there, you've got 1 to 11 playing out at the county ground, and they've all kind of come through our environment. However, that's not realistic. And some of the stuff that has recently come out, and Woody touched on it earlier on around academies, is kind of the ruthlessness and this, that, and the other. So success is if we get boys on the football pitch, fantastic. But based on the environment that we create, based on the values that we go after, the behaviours that we teach, and the culture that we create, if someone then left our environment and went on to university, then that's success, because they've taken something from our environment, we've provided a platform, and it's allowed them to continue their journey on that route. If they then get a scholarship in America, well, that's success, because we'd hope that they've taken, again, something from our environment, or the experiences that we provide, to allow them to go into that. If they then went and opened a barbershop, for example, well, that would be success, because to be a barber, you have to be incredibly industrious. You're working really, really long hours on your feet. So again, that would be success. So for us, success looks like multiple things, and I don't think it can ever just be players within the first team. I think as an academy environment, we've got a duty of care to provide more of an education than just that one. And that's where I think academy football was kind of gone. If you look at the different heads of department that we've got now, it's not just all about football. It's about being continuously curious and being a learner. It's about growing as a young person. So success for us is that, and actually we're quite proud of that.
Sure, absolutely. Miles Abode, I think that's how you say it. And I mean, he's now had 3 or 4, appearances in the first team. He's come on as a sub. He made his debut at Bradford City. How pleased are you, Sean, with that? I mean, what is his development, would you say?
Yeah, that's an amazing journey. The day that Miles walked through the door, he's a little bit of a different sort of character to some of the boys that we've had. He was with us for a couple of months. He joined at the start of the under 15s year. Then we signed him as an under 15 player. Went into the under 16s year with some real high potential. Started his under 16s year really well. Halfway through the under 16s year, he had a stress fracture in his shin. So he missed the whole second half of the under 16s season, which was a real difficult moment for him because of coming into the program so late in the plans that we had in place to work with him technically. With that in mind, I did not expect him to be where he is now, if I'm being totally honest. Obviously, it's brilliant for him, but to make that next step so soon is credit to him. Then this season, he joins the first year scholarship program. So for all of our under 16 players, it's the first time that they take a step out of school and part-time football into full-time football and training 4 or 5 times a week, or maybe 2 games or maybe 3 games. So it's a massive step for every player from under 16s to under 18s. And for Miles to sort of absorb them first 2 months, get through them physically after such a long period of time out, and all the work that was done with Miles to get him back to full fitness, it's credit to him and everybody that's been involved, and that he's sort of stuck in and around the first team and got on the pitch.
Sure. And I mean, all right, Alex, I take your point about how you want people to develop as as people first and foremost, but you must get a real buzz when that happens, mustn't you? When an academy player steps on the pitch.
100%. So the other night when he comes on here last Tuesday, we're just willing for him to get the equaliser or come on and get the winner or something like that. Just as an academy, it would be unbelievable. But as an achievement for him, it would be him realising, and he won't mind me sharing this, but it'd be him realising and recognising that next goal that he wants is to actually go on and score a goal. So yeah, we'd be ever so proud. We are ever so proud of all the boys that step into the first team environment and involved in first team fixtures on the bench, coming on off the bench. That we do get that, and we do feel that, and it's a massive reward for all the hard work that goes on within the academy from every area.
Yeah, I would imagine, Sean, what they also need is when they do step into that first team environment, they need a welcome from the first team, because it could be quite daunting, I think, for a young person, mustn't it? To all of a sudden you walk into a dressing room and there's all these professional footballers, and that's where you want to be. So do you sort of have a word with them about that as well, or the first team players more welcoming? How do they take them in?
I think the biggest thing on that one is it goes back to the culture of the whole club, and with Jamie's movement across from being academy director to now head of football, is a very, very connected, joint environment, the closest it's ever been. And thankfully, we've got some experienced pros within the first team, and because of the culture being very, very similar, that step for 17, 16 Miles, 18-year-old is, don't get me wrong, they'll still have butterflies inside them when they go up there, when they get that opportunity or that phone call or that message from myself or Alex. But with the way the club is at the moment, it's the best it could be before they actually step up there or go through the door and meet the management. But making sure that we as a club are together, it does help make that next step a little bit easier for our younger players.
So who tells them they're in the first team then, Alex? Is it you, Jamie Russell, the manager? Who tells them they're in that squad?
So it's varied this season. So Woody had the initial conversation with Miles, and when Miles first went into the first team environment, I might have a conversation or make a, depending on when we kind of make the decision or get the news. But sometimes it's kind of the middle of the day. At other times it might be a little bit later, based on the happenings at the football club. Or different injuries that may be picked up and things like that. So yeah, it has varied, but it's always one of those, you get different responses from boys as well. Some are quite openly excited, others are kind of take on board the information, but I'm not sure they process it straight away. But yeah, it's a nice conversation to have. Sometimes you don't have very nice conversations being within the roles that we're in the academy, but those ones are nice conversations to have.
Yeah, I would imagine some don't sleep very well. I don't know. It's kind of a huge thing, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest. We're all Swindon fans here. If somebody said, incredibly unlikely, that I was in the first team on the Saturday, it would be quite a moment. I think everybody who's a Swindon fan would accept that, wouldn't they? That it's their dream, really, to step out of the county ground or wherever in that Swindon shirt.
100%.
Young players, do they get over injuries quicker? I'm not expecting a call up to the first team anytime soon. I know there's shorter players at the minute, but I'm not expecting that, just so you know. Do young players get over injuries quicker than the first team players? Is that true? I mean, as you said, Miles had an injury, Sean. I mean, younger people do generally heal quicker than older people. Is that fair to say or not?
I would say the biggest thing there is it depends on the injury. Unfortunately, we've had quite a few of our under 18s this year that we've got a couple coming back now. But the length of time arguably in some injuries, maybe muscle strains and muscle injuries, it could be different between a younger player and an older pro potentially. But in the main, it'll be a grade 1 to 5, and then the length of time will be set in stone, and they'll work towards a rehab plan. But generally, I wouldn't say I'd say more the injury would be rather than the age of the player, to be honest.
And I guess, Alex, that's another thing you have to tell players to deal with, isn't it? Because, you know, some players, I mean, Wakwe, if he's out for 10 to 12 weeks or whatever, you know, players are sometimes sort of put to one side where they're recovering from injury, and that's part of the game, isn't it? They're out of the picture, they're out of the frame, so they have to deal with that too.
I think if you allow it to be part of the game, and they're out of the fixture and they're out of the way, we kind of throughout the academy, if a boy's going through an injury or whether it's long term or short term, to always still be in and around the environment. So still come out to training. Can you get involved as a coach? Can you, depending again on the injury and how severe it is, can you feed footballs into a practice? So they're still getting the social aspect of being around a group, which I think is massively important.
Sure.
Because if you're out of the way and you're isolated, then I think that's maybe not the correct thing to do for that individual. So as an environment, we'd encourage as often as possible to be around the group. Now with the 18s, we can manage that because they're in as part of a full-time program. But with the younger ones, it might be a little bit different because parents do travel and whatnot, so they might not be able to get around every session still whilst injured. But it's something we'd always encourage and something that we want the boys to come in and do.
Well, thank you very much, both of you, because I know, you know, your time is incredibly precious, so we really appreciate it. And good luck on Wednesday at Aldershot. And I assume if people want to come along on Saturday to watch you play Plymouth, that's quite they can do that down at Siren Agricultural College, can they?
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah.
We're open-minded to. Sorry, we're open-minded to anyone who wants to come down and watch the games. You are able to come to Wednesday night FA Youth Cup against Aldershot Town away as well. It'd be great to see a few faces down there to support the boys. I'm sure they'll enjoy the support if anyone can get down there as well.
And what time do you kick off on Saturdays? Is it 10:30?
11 a.m.
11 a.m. Marvellous. Okay. There you are. Double Aldershot week then. Aldershot on Saturday, Aldershot on Wednesday. So let's hope it's a double shot for Swindon over the course of the next week. That'd be great. Thank you very much indeed, Alex. Thank you very much indeed, Sean. And we appreciate the work you do because there's a lot of it. I think we've only scratched the surface because there's goodness knows how many hours that you have in the day, but we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's been fascinating. It's when we always get sort of you guys on, we always learn something. It's great. So thank you very, very much.
No problem.
Thank you everybody for watching. We will be back next week. Next Monday, we've got Chris Ramsey with us. So that's a bit of a feeler into the event we've got on the 22nd of November, which I say, if you do want to come, please get your tickets as soon as possible. Okay, so thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.